There are people in this room, and some who couldn't face coming tonight, who, like me, have had some very long and dark times during the past 25 years. We're here to remember Chris and Kev, of course, and raise money for candlelighters in their memory. But just by your presence here, it's likely that many of you have been personally and deeply affected by the events of that horrendous incident. The fabricated lies about what happened, headlines invented to sell newspapers but without any foundation in truth, resulting in some holding the opinion that the events that night was somehow justified. 25 years ago, mental health wasn't spoken about how it is now. Even now it's still stigmatised, and this leads to us suppressing or burying emotions. As reality sank in, many of us experience what are, and this is the key point, ordinary reactions to extraordinary events, basically what we call now trauma. Some of these trauma conditions: post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, emotional dysregulation, intrusive thoughts and flashbacks, complicated grief, survivor guilt. Normal reactions to these conditions include alcohol abuse. I know much about that. I spent the next 7 years pissed, basically. Substance abuse, violent outbursts, nightmares. These are not all mine, just the drinking, but hypervigilance, isolation, sleep problems, fatigue, headaches. It goes on and on. These conditions and their symptoms are not reserved just for those of us that were in Istanbul or at that incident. Those back in the hotel watching the scenes on TV, those back in the UK, our families, our friends are also susceptible to many of these. In reflection after 25 years, I count myself as lucky. I went to the doctors for sleeping tablets to try and escape the nightmares and was instantly referred to counselling. Not sure that happened today. I remember sitting in a room in Morley Health Centre and seeing a file on the desk labelled Leeds Mental Health, Charlie Valentine. And my first thought was, I maybe took that Let's Go Fucking Mental song a bit too far. It was a song and not an ambition. I spent 6 months of counselling and it ended. When it ended, I was told that I'd scored 30 out of 30 for PTSD, 29 out of 30 for depression. Better than any school grades. But it didn't mean that after that counselling I was better. The magnitude of the events of that night and the lasting effects should not be underestimated. The human brain is possibly the most complex structure known in the known universe, with neuroscientists understanding only a portion of its capability and function. So being told you just need to man up and get over it is probably not going to work. Even this time last year, I would not have been able to stand here and talk as I am now, and that is due to going through realising there was still something wrong and having another period of therapy in the past 12 months. As I stand up here now, I am basically here to urge anyone who is still suffering, trying to cope for whatever reason, to seek out assistance. I already know that I've spoken to people this evening that are not coming because of they can't face the event, and I've spoken to someone that's recently had some therapy and counselling too. Get to a doctor's if you can for it. There are many resources online. Practice self-care. So self-care is looking after yourself. Things like meditation, and it's not what people do, is it? But if Josh Warrington, and I have a good authority that Josh Warrington practices meditation, then the rest of us can do. Yeah. The scar will always be there as a reminder, but the wound and the infection can be treated. Working on trauma is not letting the memories of Chris and Kev go, and that's what I really struggled with. Look at the number of people in here. We have a strong community, and community is one of the key pillars of mental well-being. We can talk to each other, we can address the issues. Thank you to Leeds United. For many years it felt like we were an embarrassment, possibly due to the lies that were told, but the actions of the club this year have been impeccable. Thank you to Gareth. Where's he gone? Thank you to Gareth for keeping the momentum going whilst also having to cope with the memories of that night. Most of all, thanks to you for listening. If just one person takes action to improve their mental well-being from this, then it's been a few minutes we've all spent well. Thank you.